Welcome to Road to the College Football Playoff, presented by Northwestern Mutual.
Hi, everybody. Joe Tessitore with you as the Oklahoma Sooners are the focus of our road to the college football playoff. This past June, the sports world was stunned with the retirement of longtime Oklahoma legendary coach Bob Stoops. It raised a big question. Could a then 33-year-old first-time head coach handle the pressures of one of the biggest jobs in the game? By the end of the season, Lincoln Riley's squad had a Heisman Trophy-winning quarterback, had a conference championship in a much-improved and deeper Big 12, and had number 2 next to their name, their final college football playoff ranking. If there were any doubters and critics out there, the questions were answered.
I didn't want to miss the right opportunity to hand this baton off to Lincoln Riley.
Don't expect the OU brand to go away.
I understand the pressure and expectations. We don't shy away from them, but we know who we've got week 2.
Ohio State playing Oklahoma, 2 favorites in these conferences, the Big 12 and the Big 10.
Dimitri Flowers, touchdown! Oklahoma is blown it open. No, he's not going to plant it in the midfield of the O, is he? Wow.
Today's win is going to be one that the playoff selection committee is going to remember.
The Sooners are a significant favorite to win the Big 12, but that's merely the expectation.
A catch for the touchdown! Are you kidding me?
They have a defense, no matter who they play, they have to outscore teams.
Wants every bit of it. Sooners score it.
Gets to the corner. It's a touchdown!
These two teams are vying to be one of the teams in that Big 12 championship.
Going to throw deep. He's got Dimitri. It's a touchdown!
Both teams just kind of got hot. The big plays kind of magnified it.
Unhits the wagon and put the ponies in the board.
I'm not sure I've ever played a team that's averaging over 600 yards a game.
Lobs it down the middle for Rodney. Touchdown!
Baker Mayfield is Baker Mayfield. He's a warrior, competitor.
I think he still wins the Heisman.
Right there. Now that's inappropriate. That's inappropriate.
It's not the example I want to set. It's not the legacy I want to leave at OU.
Baker won't be a captain for this game. He also will not start this game, but he will play.
Sits one in there for the touchdown!
Big 12 championship. Baker and the Sooners against TCU.
And it's picked up. His scoop. Caleb Kelly's got it. And it's a touchdown!
He throws it deep down the right sideline, looking for Hollywood. He's got him on the run. And the Sooners have won their 11th Big 12 title.
Yep, the Sooners have won 11 Big 12 championships, including shared titles, 8 more than any other program. They're also the only Big 12 team to reach the college football playoff. David Pollack, Booger McFarland join in the conversation. What was your read on Oklahoma this year?
Oklahoma's been a team that you've always wanted to pick for your Final Four, but like Florida State and like some of those other teams, for me, it was could I trust them? And could I trust their defense? I knew Baker Mayfield was going to be high-flying, but would they find a way to get stops and not get outscored in big-time games? And I will say this, they got better down the stretch. I'm not going to say they were perfect by any stretch, but they did get better down the stretch of the season.
Well, and I think the biggest question a lot of us wanted to answer, what would happen at the coaching position? Bob Stoops retires, Lincoln Riley steps in. There's a big difference between OC and head coach. You got to manage more people. You got to make more decisions. I thought Lincoln Riley did an outstanding job of managing this team and giving this team confidence, because a lot of people question, like you talk about, their defense, but their offense was just so good, Joe.
He was the youngest coach in major college football. And listen, this wasn't without some hurdles to overcome. I mean, he had some pretty major things to handle, not just the questions about the defense or how he would handle the balance on short notice of getting the job so late, but then Baker Mayfield, as good as he was, there was also the drama that we just saw as well.
Yeah, there was the drama. I mean, I think he made some big statements, too, because taking that captainship away from him on senior day. Listen, Baker Mayfield at most was going to be there for 4 more games. Lincoln Riley's starting his tenure. So I think he set the tone and goes, guys, you want to mess around? You want to do stuff like this? I'm showing you that I'll suspend the big dog. I'll suspend all of you. So I think it was a big statement for Lincoln Riley. But I just – his leadership and just he doesn't get frazzled. You see him on the sideline, always very calm. He'll get fiery a little bit, but always just like this, always in control. And the way he calls plays and the way they run their offense it's the most unstoppable force in college football.
It is, and as a coach, he had to be very careful, because the thing that makes Baker Mayfield tick is the edginess. It's him being brash. It's the bravado, the moxie. The very thing that made this Oklahoma team successful was the one thing you couldn't take away. Yeah. So Lincoln had to be very careful when it came to Baker Mayfield, because he sets the tone for the entire team from an intensity standpoint. I thought he did a great job of handling everything that went down with the situation against Iowa. Iowa. We're planting the flag at Ohio State because you can't take away the one thing that makes your team special, which is the edge that Baker Mayfield brings.
You can't plant the flag on field turf either.
Yeah, but you can attempt to.
Come on. That's the only
May
thing.
as well have with the reaction that
Exactly.
it got. Baker got so much attention, but what else did you like about this offense?
I think when you look at their offensive line, it's the most underrated unit. I know people say they're the best, but we always talk about Baker Mayfield. Nobody mentions the offensive line led by Orlando Brown. I think it's the best offensive line in America. They come off the ball, they're physical. When they want to run the football, they can run the football against anyone. The question I have for Oklahoma is, why don't you run the football more? And I understand why you don't, because you have
complaining, dog.
I understand, but you have
putting up
Baker
80 a
Mayfield.
game.
That offensive line, when they want to, they can line up and run the football against anyone.
Yeah, and I think Anderson down the stretch changed this year.
Yes.
Too. He started getting a lot of touches, but let's not fool ourselves. Not only does the offensive line not get credit, Anderson doesn't.
Yes.
Andrews doesn't.
Yes.
Hollywood
Sermon.
doesn't. I mean, the Sermon.
Yes.
They've got
Sermon I love.
They've got a lot of guys and a lot of dudes across the board. They have answers to everything you can possibly bring their way, and I've been saying it, and it's not going to change. They're going to get their number. They're going to get 30 against everybody, and that includes the teams in the college football playoff. It's just if their defense holds up.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little more, especially this matchup with a defense that we have a lot of respect for. Great athletes on that Georgia defense, especially at linebacker. And it's what makes what I think with this college football playoff, of all the playoff fours that we've had, the most intriguing semifinal games that we have seen in this college football playoff. We have had some horrible. and I really feel like
to get over that.
But I really feel like we almost have championship events now in the opening round, in the semifinal rounds. They're both so greatly intriguing. A closer look at Oklahoma's road to the college football playoff. Of course, they put the country on notice in week 2. That was the 31-16 win at number 2. Ohio State, the planting of the flag as well.
On field.
Early October, they blew that lead against Iowa State. They gave up 368 passing yards. That was the loss. But even when the defense struggled, well, it didn't matter, like against Bedlam, when they won 62-52. Remember, that game was tied at 38. Then they had the sweep of TCU to claim the Big 12 championship. But there were still moments in there, especially like the moment in late September against Baylor, where you're sitting there scratching your head saying there are some doubts.
Well, and Baylor hadn't really had an offensive pulse up until that point. Right. So you were like, this is going to be a beatdown. Oklahoma can name their number, and their defense, late in their game, they're actually trailing at one point, and you're going, what the heck is going on with Oklahoma? And just you'd like to see more tenaciousness from their defense. You thought week 2 against Ohio State, you thought maybe they'd turn the corner. Maybe this defense is somebody you can trust, but that Baylor game definitely went, woo, okay, and the next week followed up by Iowa State. So,
well, I think from a potential standpoint, we saw their potential against Ohio State. In the rest of the season, from a defensive standpoint, we didn't really see it again. We saw flashes, we saw moments. I thought from the moment the defensive tackles inside, when you talk about Lampkin and the guys inside started to play better, I thought the defense got a little better. And so when the running game and the defensive line started to control the line of scrimmage, I thought that's when their team was at their best.
Why did the national narrative change, though? Because that's a really detailed, that's in the woods, somebody like the two of you guys who are watching film. The national perception and the narrative changed, and it went from the argument of they can't be in the college football playoff with that defense to nobody talking about that ever again and just acknowledging, hey, Baker, the offense, what does it matter?
When you realize that the most unstoppable force in college football was Oklahoma's offense.
Yes.
The last, I don't know how many weeks of the season, it was almost like it's a foregone conclusion. Okay, Oklahoma State can get 60, Boog, but we'll get more. It just 52, and then they scored 60-something. So I think when you realize that there's an answer, this offense has an answer to every single defense that they'll face, you knew that the offense was just too good and Baker Mayfield was too good. So it went from just, okay, they'll find a way to get it done.
And I think people start to understand the Big 12 is different. They face a lot of great quarterbacks in the Big 12. Mason Rudolph, namely, guys that can put up points. Kenny Hill can throw the football all over the yard. So you have to put in perspective just what is this defense? Is it a defense that can go out and get stops against normal quarterbacks, not like the one in the Big 12? Or is it a defense that's going to struggle against any quarterback? And Baker Mayfield in the offense has been that good. So the reason to your question, Joe, that we don't talk about the defense is because how good that offense has been. It's been historically good from an offensive standpoint, running the ball, passing the ball.
Points, yards per play, everything.
Every single thing you see. Their offense has been just that good.
We'll be talking about their defense soon.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. In fact, coming up just in moments, we will be doing that. Much more to come here on the road to the college football playoff. Baker Mayfield, the most attention-grabbing player in the country. Boog is going to show us what makes him one of a kind. Stay with us. More to come.
Road to the College Football Playoff is presented by Northwestern Mutual. Northwestern Mutual. We help you live life differently. You're watching Road to the College Football Playoff, presented by Northwestern Mutual.
Well, he's got the Heisman. He also has the back end of such a strange season beyond the accolades and stats. Baker Mayfield, of course, drew the ire of many Buckeyes fans when he did that in Columbus, planting the flag. Then in late October, taking on his former team, Texas Tech, wore the T-shirt that read Traitor, popularized by Red Raiders fans, went out, of course, and threw 4 touchdowns and ran for another in the Sooners' win. Then against Kansas, going to shake the hand? No. Kansas players shunned him pre-game. It was a 41-3 blowout, but he ended up arguing with the fans and, of course, the well-documented obscene gesture. Then the biggest stage, dominating TCU for a second time in the Big 12 title game. He threw for 243 and 4 scores. Baker Mayfield this season, every which way you want it. Well, he has started for Oklahoma for now 3 seasons, yet already on the top of many of the school records. Has the highest completion percentage in Sooner history, ranks only behind Landry Jones in completions, yards, and touchdowns. Jones, by the way, was a 4-year starter. Kirk Herbstreit visited Baker earlier this season and discussed what motivates him.
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Good. Good to see you. Nice facility.
Oh, it's very nice.
Yeah, how do we get through here?
Well, it's fancy. Welcome to Oklahoma football. We got a fingerprint here. Access only.
Here's Mayfield, Heisman hopeful, wide open and complete. Baker Mayfield does it.
Let's talk about your journey. You grow up and you start to want to play football, and you didn't have just a smooth path.
Right from the get-go of playing football, I was not tall enough to play quarterback. I had leadership skills at a young age that were, very special. So if I don't have, the prototypical build, I'm going to work on stuff that'll make me beat out somebody else in that spot.
Mayfield, he's going to launch it downfield, wants every bit of it. Sooners score it.
You play with a chip on your shoulder. You've talked a little bit privately about kind of a list that you have of people that have maybe said things about you going all the way back to elementary school.
For me, it started at a young age. I wrote it on a piece of paper. And so I just wrote kind of some stuff that, for me, that had really, grind my gears and got me going. I had the coaches telling me I needed to get faster or needed to do this and that, get a better arm. I mean, it's just, it started with that.
Do you still need those things now to give you that edge?
I've had success because I've worked so hard and played with an edge. You should never have that moment where you think, oh, I have it made. I have it all figured out, because you don't. After I'm done playing football, I can take a step back and think about it, but for right now, I've always had to keep motivated.
Are you aware of the running backs, the linemen, maybe even the defense responding to that authentic, toughness that you play with?
I believe in myself, and also I'm going to fight for my brothers. Whether it's a 7-foot Andre the Giant, I'm going to fight for them, and they need to see that. And so I think they see that. It's not necessarily anything I'm doing on the field. It's my mindset and what I would do for them.
No, he's not going to plant it in the midfield of the O, is he? Wow. Yes, he is. Ooh.
A lot of people talked about the flag at the end of the Ohio State game, but just within the game itself, there were some people chirping that kind of got your attention too.
Yeah, there was a couple guys, and they were letting me have it, and I loved it. I loved it. I was firing right back at them. I make some friends whenever I go into an away stadium, but also a lot of enemies.
What's up with the T-shirt? What was that about?
That was something that was my warm welcome back home in Lubbock. They sold them right when we got there last year, and so my buddy, he got one for me and mailed it to me. So I thought it was the perfect time to break it out.
Snap to Mayfield, back to pass. He's going to take a deep shot down the near sideline. Marquise Brown, he's got it! It's a touchdown! Oh, mama!
And Mayfield dominated the awards circuit, took home the O'Brien and the Maxwell, of course, in addition to the Heisman. The other players to do that in the last decade, Mariota, Cam Newton, Tim Tebow. So he's collected a lot of hardware, and it's pretty easy to see when you look at the film. Take us through, Boog.
No doubt. And we talk about all the quarterbacks around America, Sam Darnold, Rosen, Allen. He may be the best one of them all, and I'll show you why on this tape, Joe. It's unreal. You talk about the epitome of a dual-threat quarterback, a guy that can do it all. He can line up at the quarterback position. You remember the old Redskins, John Riggins. They used to run this play called counter OT. What about quarterback OT? We pull the guard. We pull the tackle. Now, coming downhill is Baker Mayfield. This play was designed for John Riggins back in the day, but here you have Baker Mayfield running downhill. He's a dual-threat quarterback. That's the running part, but he can also throw the football. Here he is sitting back in the pocket. The offensive guard gets beat. Baker Mayfield is staring down the barrel. He moves the safety, but guess what? Even while the defender is coming at him, he can make a pinpoint accurate throw on the outside. That's the throwing part. But when you put them together, the ability to move with his feet and throw with his arm, what do you do when everything's covered? Right here. Notice the clock. 5 seconds in the pocket. Everything is covered. Now, as a defense, you think, we've won. No, not with Baker Mayfield. The scramble drill to the outside, the receiver uncovers, and now Baker Mayfield makes an accurate throw. He's the epitome of a dual-threat quarterback. He can do it all. He can run it, and he can throw it.
You know, it's interesting. We don't attach a lot of great physical attributes to him and thinking of him as strong and explosive. You see that GT stuff there. And I mean, this guy's a little thicker, a little better athlete than we've long given him credit for.
And the athleticism that he possesses is what makes this offense so dangerous, because when you take away the run game with Anderson and Sermon and you say, you know what, now I'll blitz him, he can hurt you with his legs also.
And then the mastery of the RPO stuff.
Yes.
You like what he does there.
Love what he does there, because now the one thing you can't take away, the one thing no defense accounts for is the quarterback run. We can stop all the run game, we can stop the pass game, but the quarterback run, that's the odd man out.
Speaking of stopping things, that will be critical for the Oklahoma defense in their Rose Bowl matchup. How will they handle Georgia? We're going to get into it. The playoff matchup itself when we return here on the road to the college football playoff.
Road to the College Football Playoff is presented by Northwestern Mutual. Northwestern Mutual. We help you live life differently.
Consider these two playoff games we have when you look at the experience here, because Saban and Dabo, they've combined to coach 31 bowl games. Kirby and Lincoln just won. And Riley is trying to become the first coach since Larry Coker at Miami to win the national title in his first season. How impressed are you by Lincoln Riley? Extremely, especially when you consider everything that happened this year. You lose to Iowa State. Then you have the situation with Baker Mayfield, not once but twice. In the first game at Ohio State, the second game time against Kansas. When you put that together, how he's handled his superstar, how he's gotten his team to this point, I thought he did a phenomenal job, especially considering this is his first year.
You're learning on the job.
Exactly.
I think it was really, really important and a really cool thing to have Bob Stoops in your corner. A guy that's been there for so long that you could lean on, you could ask questions to, you could pick his brain in every situation. He's had the pulse of his team. He was coaching this team, remember, until what? June. So yes, he had a awesome mentor that stuck around that helped him to this spot. But just to me, the ability for the offense to thrive with him as the OC and handle all the head coaching responsibilities.
That's right.
That's a tough thing to do, and he handled it well.
Yeah. Biggest concern is for the DC, though, right?
The Stoops. Yeah.
This is
the other Stoops.
Can they stop the Georgia running game? When you first heard this matchup and you focused your attention there, what did your gut tell you?
What does my gut tell you about them stopping it?
Stopping the Georgia run game.
I don't see it. I don't see the front seven when you look at Oklahoma. There are not a lot of guys that are going to make a lot of impacts or get in the backfield and make a lot of TFLs and put you behind the sticks. And I believe Georgia just rushed for 300 against Auburn, who has a really, really good dominant defensive front. To me, a great matchup you want to focus is the linebackers and the safeties for Oklahoma. They're all smaller guys. Look, you got to tackle 220, 230, 215, and guess what? They just rotating. They're coming in fresh. Here comes another one. Here comes another one. Here comes another one.
You know, to your point, though, Playing the run is about numbers. It's simple math. If they have 7 guys to block, you bring 8 guys down, leave a free hitter to make the tackle.
Yeah, but now you got to tackle that guy.
I understand.
That's what I'm saying.
If Oklahoma does want to stop this run, they're going to have to bring that extra guy down. That's what I would do. I would put everybody down against the run. I would make Fromm throw the football over the top to Wims, to Godwin, to somebody else to beat me. I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to dare Jake Fromm to beat them, and I think that's their best game plan against this run.
Is that a situation where the play-action game with Georgia could kick in a little bit?
Yeah, but you can. If I'm Oklahoma, I can afford to do that because of my offense.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of teams that you got to go. I can't give up the big play. I got to keep everything in front of me. I got to limit them. I can't do. When you know Baker is going to get his, you kind of can. They've lived by the sword, die by the sword. You realize that we can blitz, we can bring pressure. So yes, I would absolutely 100% try to play that pressure defense and make Fromm uncomfortable.
Or is there a concern that Georgia, with time-consuming drives, with long, sustained drives, moving the chains, can keep Baker over there on the bench?
I think from that standpoint, Georgia wants to control the clock and run the football. Yep. Everyone talks about the strength-on-strength matchup. Oklahoma's offense, Georgia's defense. I, like you, think the matchup is on the other side of the football when you look at how they're going to be able to control the football and line up and run the ball downhill. If Oklahoma can't stop the run, they're going to keep running it over and over. Old football coach told me this. The easiest thing for any quarterback in America to do is turn around and hand it off.
Especially those backs.
Exactly. If they can't stop that, then the game will be a short, quick game.
You brought it up briefly, but I think there is something to it because we have seen this all year long with Georgia, that it's not just Nick Chubb. It's not just Sony Michel. And by the way, the most explosive of them all may be the freshman from Philly, DeAndre Swift.
Yes.
How critical has his emergence been to know no matter where you're turning, you got a 5-star kind of guy who can rev up the engine with fresh legs each time, Davey?
Well, it's crazy. It's such an advantage for Chubb and Michel to have another guy like Swift, too, because they just get to rotate and stay fresh. And you talk to any back, look at all the stuff we do with the NFL now. And we talk about that number of 30, that age of 30 when they all fall off a cliff. Come here, you rotate. You start rotating, you stay fresh. You're not going to get huge numbers. None of them ever get huge numbers, but Swift in the SEC championship game make a big run. So their ability to rotate those guys and keep them fresh, it's miserable for anybody to stop consistently.
Best case scenario for Oklahoma as to what could reveal itself early in this game. Something that you see with the matchup early and say, you know what, they're going to be just fine today.
If Georgia's playing 3rd and long, 2nd and long, 3rd and long. Now you know your offense is going to get extra possessions. Typically an offense or each team gets about 12 to 14 possessions per game. If now the opposing team is not converting on 3rd down, and that's not a strength of Georgia, 3rd and long, then now you give more possessions to Baker Mayfield. If he gets 14, 15 possessions, odds go to his favor. He's going to score 30 or even more points.
Best thing you want to see is the cannon going off and Boomer Sooner scoring. That's what you want to see. That's what you do. That's who you are. That's how you're built. So they want to see that offense going right down the field, making big-time plays.
Is there an X-factor guy for Oklahoma? A guy that I always like for them is Dimitri Flowers, the big back. Plays that fullback, but a guy who gets himself into space and can be something coming out of the backfield. Is there an X-factor guy out there for them?
And to me, it's the defensive tackle Lampkin, because I think anytime you face a running game that's that strong, that's that powerful, they want to come downhill. Georgia's not an outside running team. Now, they made the adjustment against Auburn to run outside, but they want to come downhill. They want to bludgeon you physically. Well, how do you do that? You got to move guys like me out of the way. You got to move 300-pound guys that are big, strong, and got skinny ankles. If they can move Lampkin out of the way, they'll be able to run the football. But Lampkin has to step up, and the other guys, and play big inside him, Bledsoe. They got to be factors.
I think Andrews, too, on offense.
Oh, he's a weapon.
He won the Mackey Award, and he's not a blocker by any stretch of the imagination, but he is a large receiver on the outside, big body. 3rd downs, 6 is looking for him.
Yeah. It is a fascinating matchup, and this has been Oklahoma's road to the college football playoff. What a season to celebrate.